Okay, so this is just a video for my YouTube channel that I want to make. So like outside of like music and all that, I'm really into like racing games. And so there's a game coming out in September called NASCAR 26. And for the race fans and for the people who I talk to, like my friends and everything who are into racing, um, I just wanted to give my thoughts and my predictions and things that I think, I hope, and wish that would happen for NASCAR 26, and hopefully what will come out in the game NASCAR 26. Um, First of all, going from ignition to 25 was a really huge milestone. 21 had a lot of lows, and in fact, they barely had anything that was pretty much a highlight from that game. A lot of the clips that you see are low lights from the game, and it was a big step for iRacing. iRacing has owned a simulator for a couple of decades, I believe, maybe even a little bit earlier than that. It's really hard to tell. You know, they when iRacing made the simulation, they put a lot of like years and years and years of effort, and they've had a lot of dedication, and a lot of that came from Earnhardt Jr. and everyone else who's really huge into the NASCAR scene. So, when they came out with the console game, everyone was very hyped about it. And don't get me wrong, it's a really fine game. Okay, I feel like the way they went about it though was a little bit disappointing. How they chose a lot of content creators more than race content creators, like serious race content creators. Like we had guys like Komodo Gaming, who may like the game because it's eye candy. Like the physics look amazing. Maybe the driving was a little bit different than most arcade games, which is great and all. But they didn't really. I'm sure they didn't give a whole lot of attention to detail. The minuscule things that make a game great. Um, Another thing too is I feel like they didn't really test out the online multiplayer. Now, don't get me wrong, there's still some issues with it, but when the game came out, it wasn't that buggy. It had some issues, that's for sure, especially online, but it wasn't like NASCAR Ignition buggy. However, however, it feels to me that the racing product online isn't what it should be up to as far as standards go. Okay. When you are in a low powered vehicle with AI that's not at max level, at most tracks, you can kind of run the bottom and pass AI cars. You can run the top and actually pass a whole lot more. One thing that I hate about NASCAR 25 is how single groove or single and a half groove tracks were. Look, in order to pass people on the bottom at Kansas, you had to hope that the line on top hits the wall. Because that wall will slow you down so much. You can go from, if you are in a tight pack of like 20, 25 cars, you hit the wall once, you could lose 8 spots within 3 seconds, 2 seconds. And like, wait, well, that's kind of like real life NASCAR. Well, yeah, but the difference is, a video game. And a wall shouldn't slow you down 40, 50 miles an hour. I don't care how hard you hit it. If you're on the top and you hit the wall a little bit, that should be like a little bit of a tap. Not like it's going to help you gain speed, but it shouldn't slow you down 40, 50 miles an hour. That's one thing that I hope they worked on, because that is a huge issue, especially when that's the only groove that's fast. A lot of the mile and halves is the top. Last thing you want is have 4 or 5 guys hit the wall at once and everyone loses different amounts of speed. That's dramatic. It's just not good. One thing that I will hope carry over from iRacing to this new NASCAR 26 is the dynamic tracks. You see, I feel like track shouldn't like always be the same. I feel like the weather should play a little bit of a difference. The time of day should play a little bit of difference. I would, hopefully see some days where, like let's say you can choose a setting for Sunday at 1 p.m., have a huge different impact than if it was like a Sunday 6 p.m. race, Sunday 5 p.m. race. Um, I feel like the uh, track model should change throughout a race. I look, I understand, totally agree on like long runs with tire wear that tracks like Homestead and Kansas, the High Line normally a lot of the times are dominant. But I feel like, if you can get that bottom to roll or if you get the middle to roll really well, that should be a factor on a longer run, stuff like that. Um, I like to see guys be able to use all lanes throughout the whole entire race. Maybe one being predominant more than the others at certain parts of the race. Maybe, the start of the race, the bomb's great. Maybe towards the middle of the race, the top starts to, come in a little bit. Maybe vice versa. Sometimes maybe the top will be fast and then maybe the bottom might come in. Stuff like that. Now, will it come in NASCAR 26? Probably not. But iRacing has that kind of system in their simulation. You can go onto iRacing right now and you can kind of feel, the tracks change. Not every track is going to, not every time you load up into a one particular track, it's going to drive the same. Sometimes it drives very close, sometimes it doesn't. Um, a few other things. I think the lack of wheel spin uh, hurts a little bit in NASCAR 25. Because I'm not trying to compare to a simulation, because the simulation will probably be miles ahead on most things compared to a console game. But I feel like the problem with the cars is how stuck they are. Now, granted, yes, they're tight, and sometimes they get real loose. When I mean stuck, I'm not talking about grip, but how the car physically stays in the corner very well, and how stable it is, and how steady it is, even with no assists. And it feels like you can, on a long run, the way that the driving mechanics is in the game is like a slight delay. So when I see a car get loose on the long run, I more see that as a tire wear thing more than a wheel spin thing, because I can promise you one thing: the driving on NASCAR 26 may feel great and feel smooth for PlayStation users or even PC users, but it just feels like there's a delay. Like you can go onto the third person cam or the chase cam, and the car feels kind of like floaty a little bit, and when you turn a little, it feels a little more reactive. But if you go onto certain other cams, it feels like the car drives differently. I don't know. That could just be a me thing, but I just have that, sensation when going from chase cam to hood cam, or, even the roof cam. So hopefully they make the driving a little bit more smoother and not as stable, and make it more out of control, and like have more throttle play. But like outside of that, I mean, I wouldn't really care for a lackluster of a paint booth. I know everyone, that's eye candy for a lot of players who, look forward to getting a NASCAR game, is the paint booth, customizations. But I think if you really want a great racing game, you got to focus on the racing, okay? Talking about tires, we're talking about track models, we're talking about drivability of all lanes throughout a track, you know, just stuff like that. Because here's the thing, like I said, it's hard to go off a racing game when you have content creators, excuse me, you have content creators who aren't exactly all racing content creators, and a lot of other, I'm not trying to, put shame to these people. I mean, these people have followings, and, they really are great to the community and great for the community. But if you want someone who really wants a racing game to be great, you got any guys like Matt Malone, stuff like that. Those guys are phenomenal when it comes to driving on iRacing, and those guys know what they want in the car. They know what a car should feel like, and they race a lot. I mean, even the guys from maybe Moon Car might even help you out a little bit. But, getting guys like Komodo Gaming really, really stinks a little bit, considering the fact that you have, like, Real Radman or the Iceberg who could, and I even think that even the Iceberg may have even tested out a little bit. I could be wrong about that one. But those are the people that, would be awesome. They'll have great insight. I'm sure this next her game is going to have a lot of testers, and I'm sure they're going to be testing out a lot of the issues that were on NASCAR 25 or disappointments in NASCAR 25. Just hopefully they have a great solid game that has better driving mechanics, better track models, driving models, and this game would be perfect. Um, everyone, I'm a little skeptical about it, because again, it's only their second year, and I'm not sure how much they put in progress into NASCAR 26, but I'm sure they've done a lot. Um, you know, what gets me a little worried but a little excited is that iRacing could have potentially maybe copy and pasted a lot of the stuff they had in the iRacing simulation code to put onto the console game, but a lot of it may have override PlayStation 5. And now hoping that this is gonna be cross-play, we may get more of that simulation vibes with the cars, the tracks, and going from a console game 25 to now console game 26 for NASCAR iRacing Studios, we could see a lot of the same things that we have seen in the first game. Um, and now, again, it's going to be an upgrade. So, can expect better driving. We can expect better track driving. Maybe conditions could be adjusted because there were clouds in the trailer or the little drifting or the burnout teaser that we got. So, yeah, basically, all I'm asking for NASCAR 26 is just better car driving, okay? Better track models, lanes coming in, tire wear making a difference on how you drive your car. And that's, basically it. And hopefully, just the driving itself is just better. And I think, it needs to be more of a challenge, kind of like iRacing is, okay? Um, and honestly, too, right? The problem is that like you can't go to simulation because that's at a certain point that means that the wheel will be such a huge benefit to a lot of drivers, and I still think nowadays that you could be fast on controller. You could in the simulation iRacing, there's a guy who I think had like 5,000 safety rating on a controller. That's on a controller. That is really hard to uh, attain and sustain over a course of time, and be fast and win races and all that. But then, you got guys who are on wheels. That's like 100% of the people who are racing competitively are like on wheels. So hopefully they can get a happy medium where guys can compete really well and could contend, you know, on wheel or on controller. I think that's really huge. And with it being on cross-platform, I'm hoping that we do get a lot of that variety of people, controller, wheel, heck, maybe even a joystick. It sounds stupid. It does sound stupid, but you know, some things like that will be awesome. Okay, you know, it'd be really weird to have a wheel dominant racing game. Maybe 10 years ago, 20 years ago, controller was more prominent. Now it's getting more and more prominent. And you got to keep that competitive, be able to have a game where it can favor both sides, okay? People who use wheels, they have to put extra money in, and, it's a little bit more physical than having a controller. And like controller has issues now. Okay, controller has stick drift, stuff like that can cause a car. Like if you're trying to turn the vehicle a little bit and get that little bit of twitchiness and everything, it could cause a lot of issues. It could make you lose a lot of tire wear. So hopefully they find a happy medium in NASCAR 26 for that. But other than that, I'm looking forward to this new racing game. I saw everyone's opinions on other people's videos of the cover being only Kyle Larson. It's kind of a bummer. Um, you know, I would have rather see maybe 3 stars, on the cover, or maybe keep it the same way they had it in NASCAR 25, with like the three guys, three manufacturers being, shown onto the cover. Going from that to just one guy, Larson. I mean, if you want to talk about a star this year, you could have done Denny Hamlin. You could have easily done, if Bush was still alive, you could have done Bush. Rest in peace. So it's kind of a little lackluster that just did Larson. No, no, I don't hate him. I don't hate Larson, but the cover could have definitely been a little bit more improved. But yeah, that's my thoughts of NASCAR 26, and Hopefully I'll be posting another video pretty soon, maybe reacting to a video on my computer. So yeah, I hope everyone has a great rest of your day, and hope everyone's drivers stay safe and have fun this weekend at San Diego. All right, bye.